My babies think it's supper time, and they're almost right, but it's not quite. They won't get any for another hour probably. That's cornbread. Missy to your left. Peppy the little one. Buttercup the big one. And Clara the Clara one. Yes. There's all my babies. Up there on the hilltop, past those grain bins, directly back there, if you just walk from here that away, is where the watersheds where I live split. Everything to our left from that high point goes back over that away, and it goes down into my creek. And everything from our right goes back around that away. That's the barn. And then it goes over there, and down there there's a larger river. My creek is a tributary to that river, so ours winds up there, but it goes farther. It goes through our creek. Over there, the brighter green, that's my neighbor's soybean field. It's sprayed with every kind of deadly poison you could possibly imagine. The rest of this weedy looking ground, that's my pasture ground, and I manage it in ways that I attempt to increase the topsoil and get it to make, those are like mulberry trees, and they make food and stuff, and of course it makes donkeys, which is very special. It's cool today. It's 77. There's my too big truck, and there's my too big trailer, and besides my donkeys, I sure do have a lot of stuff that runs on petroleum. I write about that from time to time. That's there. That's so that people can come visit and stay here, but it's not set up right for that yet. Over there, that tree line that you see, that's the creek, and that's our property over there. So, but I'm going to tell you a little story about this creek, what I know about it, because it's a major part of my life. I'm listening to, which is the lazy old person's version of reading, a book called Water Always Wins. And it's an excellent book, and I believe in it and approve everything it says. We're walking down this side, the same ridge that I showed you. It's back up there behind that black pickup truck, and on that hilltop, that's the same ridge I showed you from up by the barn. And we're on the downhill side of it here. It comes downhill all the way from there to here. That's Bandit, he walks with me. So where we are here is above, by elevation, the highest concentration of water on this watershed. Everything above this is sheets and rivulets off the hill slopes. Over there again, that's this side of that tree line, that's the neighbor's soybeans. That's a big part of my creek's drainage, and during part of the year, it's during a lot of the year, it's just bare, dead soil, dead dirt. I don't guess it's soil anymore. It's too killed. This is more of my weedy pasture. That grass so does slow down the flow rate, but it's still too fast. I got a spot right here that right there, a lot, what's there is a lot of what was at one time waste straw. I put that in there to slow the water, because as water moves so fast there that it tears away the soil. And I'm trying to slow it so that soil falls out instead of getting picked up. He's a funny guy. I was walking down the road. He stopped and waited for a while to make sure where I was going. Then when he realized I was going far enough, he came down past me, and away he goes. He's a funny guy. Okay, so now we're almost to the point where the creek crosses the road and comes onto my property. There, what we're looking at there, that's my property that I inherited from my late wife, Gloria. That's the farm that she bought. That's a creek. That wood line is a creek. And when she bought it, it was very typical of a North Missouri farmland creek, which means it was scalped and hayed right down to the edge of the water, and the water roared through here. This is elderberries. This is my only currently productive patch of elderberries, but we have a bunch of others that are planted that are a few years behind these in age. They'll get here, but that's all elderberries. County used to kill those, and I got annoyed with them and put that sign there up. Anyway, here's the creek. It comes onto my place here. It's a high ground seasonal creek. There's no water in it right now. We had a decent rain today, but not a lot. This creek often goes dry in August. That black thing right there, that's a big plastic spool that goes under the road. This is an old concrete culvert of the old kind of how the water used to come under the road. Water comes from over here. That's the neighbor's hayfield. He's already cut it this season. Water comes across right here. It runs, as you look here. Bandit! Too far, come back! Come on! Silly guy. I don't know if you can even see Bandit, but that whole road between here and there, I have old topographical maps. I used to, I think I've lost them. But I had old topographical maps from before that road was built. And this creek was right there. And since it's a seasonal creek, come on, Bandit! Come on! Part of the year, they could just drive their teams along it. And so when they went over from teams to cars and pavement, they just pushed it off to the side. So now there's a big high levee. I say high, 3 feet. Bandits trotting along it. It forms the right-hand shoulder as you look up the road. And that wood line there, that's in the creek. And it's just dead straight. And it comes off of all that ground up there. It comes off of ground that goes back that way, and it comes from up there. But we're way in the uplands. So it's not too disappointing that it dries out, although come on, buddy, come on. I have a faith that if I work with nature and with the world, we can get beavers to live here and make this permanent water. I don't know that. You can see that the soil is wet down there. Okay, here's that tube. What happened was, good dog, Bandit, good dog. That concrete spool was there, and the more they plow upstream, the more they pave uphill, and then this up here used to be more twisted than it is. It used to twist back, 1/8 of a mile into these farmers' fields, and they all demanded that it be made ditch straight. So all that was done to accelerate the water flow coming down here. And everything that they do up there has the effect of accelerating the water flow coming down here until you get up to those bushy looking trees up there, and that's where my place starts and all the rules change. But so they built this road in the creek. They pushed the creek over there. They made it about 8 feet wide and about 16 feet deep, and they made it go as fast as it can. So then it means if you see that blue barrel there, there's a driveway, and there's a family who owns a house over there, and their house is actually in the creek's floodplain, which means every time it rains real hard, their house gets flooded, and they get annoyed and call the county and tell the county to come out here and speed this water up, and that's how we got this black plastic thing. They put it in. So that Bandit stick around. So anyway, going down this way, everything uphill from here has been done to add energy to the water by accelerating its flow and concentrating its volume into as cylindrical. Come on, Bandit, we're coming this way. Cylindrical a volume as it can be. And then when it gets here, I immediately start trying to suck the energy back out of it and slow it down and turn this back into a creek. So I'm going to show you today the things that I do and talk about my hopes. These are just hopes. Well, not entirely. I've had some success, but that's what I'm doing today. We're talking about the creek. It's dry, so I can go walk in it if I need to. Okay, this is oh, it's Briarsley. We call it the East Pasture, other things. And this mowed lane, I mow a lane around it. If you don't mow these, you can't walk down here without getting tick bit, and I don't like them. Plus, all these stakes represent seedlings that we've planted. This one here is an oak tree. I guess that's some kind of white oak. There's a good chance that's a bur oak from uphill on this same farm. Down in there is where the creek is. Right over there, you can't quite see it, but right over there is where the concrete tube comes in, and we'll get down there. So I mow along here, and then I go along this riparian woods. This riparian woods is all volunteer. There's a lot of willow in there. There's a lot of mulberry in there. There's a lot of honey locust in there, which is an obnoxious weedy plant. Thorns longer than your finger. There's a lot of other native hardwoods in there. And one of the things we do is we go along the edges, both edges of this riparian woods, and we slowly attempt to widen it by planting additional trees. And because the existing vegetation, you can see here, is often fiercely competitive, I come down and I mow. Okay, this is our crop tree here. I can't tell you for sure what that is. That might be a chestnut. That's a downed elm or willow, and that is I consider that to be an asset. Okay, I have gone out in there and mowed to reduce poison ivy. Right now there's not a lot of poison ivy in there, so I'm ignoring it. Somewhere here, we may get to a place where I can get over to the creek and begin to show what we have. I'm not sure what this tree is. I think it's probably a volunteer, but it's growing. Okay, so down here, I think this may be something they call jewel weed, but I'm not sure. Obviously grasses. Okay, now this is the high level floodplain. Well, I'm standing, I don't know how well you can see it but the ground goes down sharply at a 30-degree angle between my feet and right there where I'm pointing. There's about 4 feet or 5 feet of height difference. And down there is all flat. Okay, so that's, and you can see there's where it comes out, there's a down tree there. Okay, that vegetated, wooded floodplain, when it rains hard and flows get high, the water runs in here, and every time it hits something, it loses energy. It transfers its energy into the thing it hit by making it move, by making the water move. So that when the water loses energy, then it will drop. For instance, if it's carrying silt, how much silt it can carry is directly proportional, well, not directly, I mean there's always squares of this and that, but is mathematically proportional to how much energy and how fast it's going and how much silt it can carry are directly related. So if I can get it slowed down, then silt falls out. So since, like Roger's soybean field comes down here 8 months of the year every time it rains, and my plan is to catch as much of Roger's soybean field as I can, regardless of how much toxins in it, because my plan for toxins is to try to bioremediate with all these plants. Okay, now I add trees and woody matter to the creek bed. This is the bed. It's not, we've walked a long way, but back up that way to the road is probably only 40 or 50 feet. And you can see here that the bed's really deep. It's probably, I'm gonna guess 16 feet down to the bottom of that channel. And you can see over there how torn away that bank is. You can see all the roots of everything that's growing there, and you can see that if I would plant more trees right in that spot 5 feet out, they'd have a chance to combat that. Okay, this one's a maple. That's good. It'll grow tall, reach for the sun. It'll make seeds that squirrels can eat, and when it dies, it'll make morel mushrooms. Okay, so this area up here this is what you see when you see a waterway that is hit by just vastly too much energy. I have all the speed that all the 21st century can add to this water uphill from me coming onto my property through 2 tubes. And since they added the black tube, this ditch has probably gotten 6 feet deeper. I mean, it made a big difference. It's vastly destructive. But you can see down here that the ditch bottom is getting wider. And if you see that trunk there, that root there sticking out, as we go through here, every time I have the opportunity, I add woody mass to the channel. And I can't do that everywhere. This is a Japanese honeysuckle, and it's an invasive problem, but I haven't attacked it yet. Down there you can see it's wider. You can see the root balls. This tree here. Okay. As trees fall into the bed, I try to arrange them if they're in small enough pieces for me to arrange. I try to arrange them so that they block as much of the velocity of the water as is possible. So kinetic energy of a mass is half of mass times velocity squared. So the energy that is in it drops faster than the speed drops. So you can absorb as much energy as possible by expressed as speed. So one of the things that I've done is encouraged and increased curbs by stacking wood along the outside where it wants to be outside. That little log there used to be a lot bigger. And that the water's coming from almost directly behind us there, but it hits all this and it goes around. And then we start to get actual gain. Okay, I've got woody things added there and there and there, and I've been one thing that the dry year has been beneficial is that sandbar colonizers have had a chance to move in, and from here I can see 3 willows on that sandbar. And willows bring beavers. Willows don't wash away easily, and if they do wash away, they just become more of what I need in my bed. We've let enough silt out before we get here that we're starting to see some texture in the bottom. Okay, now I'm standing right up there is where I was standing while I was videoing this bottom. Although it's got no flowing water, it's quite a bit of water in the bottom, so that'll still support life. That's a willow there. There's always trash down here. It's regretful. I live in America. It's an open air dumpster. Sometimes I haul the trash out of here, but like I got some there, but I'm not going to haul it out today. Now these channels along here are narrow, which means it doesn't take a real high flow to get up there. It'll cut across this peninsula that I'm standing by. After a rainy summer, you go up there and all the grass is mashed down, and you can see where all the side channels run. There's, I'm going to say that's probably coon feet. I've planted a bunch of sandbar willow in the banks down here, and I've also transplanted a bunch of local willow down here. Well, transplant, I just cut sticks and come down here and stick them in the mud, and I don't keep track of them. You know, that's a root hog or die deal. You can see here, that's part-time channel there. There's the bank, that's the cutaway bank. See if I could ever get this. There's big tracks. I'll bet that's bandit. Most of this, that'll be a street sign. People steal street signs and throw them away. That's an aluminum street sign buried in the dirt. Lots of this honeysuckle down here. I could spend the rest of my life just fighting with it, but doesn't seem productive enough. I'm not sure. It's hard to decide. Look at that. Isn't that interesting? It's been so dry this year. See the bottom here where the rain comes, but that's I don't know how that all came up. This is eroded bank, but as you can see, it's covered with enough vegetation to slow the erosion. That right there, that's a honey locust tree. That thing, when it grows up, will have thorns bigger than my longest finger. I don't know how this stuff in this particular shape and form got down here. I guess it's naturally composted leaves mostly. I don't know. It's pretty cool. Of course, something may have dug it out. I don't know. Up there, I got a lot of video that you've seen of the back bottom ground. That's on the outside of that woods. This is the inside of the riparian woods. Up here, you can see that bright spot. That's the spot where I can get right to the bank. And so what I do there is I just, whenever I have wood, branches, logs, old railroad ties, old construction lumber, as long as it's wood and will slowly compost, I bring it down here and I add it to this spot. And I particularly, there's more of that structure. That's interesting. Whatever it is, it goes with the territory. I started this. See, we almost got running water here. Let's stand in water. I started this strictly with honey locust branches. Honey locusts are just horrendously thorny, but if you throw their branches down in a creek, they act like biological Velcro and they glue themselves together and the water can't wash them away. So even though it starts out like a thin mesh, a thin net, it starts to catch soil and catch leaves and build its own dam. And so what I've done here, this is not a beaver dam analog because it's not waterproof, but it's a significant water obstacle, speed obstacle. So the water comes rocking down through here and it hits that thing, and you can see that it just bounces back all over the place, and it makes the hole wider, fills it with water. I wonder what that hole there is. Might be a crawdad. There's another one like it. There's trash in there. That's a pity. I didn't put it there. I haven't got it out. I don't know if you can see them from here. The ground's so soft here. This is actually working because I've almost got standing water. But down there, yeah, there you can almost see them. Let me zoom in on this. See those? Those are T-posts. And T-posts are steel industrial fence posts. And I have 2 rows of them. I have that row you can see there, and then you go around a curve, and I have another row just like it. And they're just driven in the ground across the channel, perpendicular to the channel. I have read that when beavers hear the sound of rushing water around an obstacle, it triggers an instinctive response to repair that and build a dam there. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to create an environment down here where the water moves slow enough and I can keep it long enough that beavers can work with it and build ponds and wetlands down here. And that's one of my biggest goals in my whole life. But I don't want to do anything. I want to do this by the smallest and the least. The thing about steel posts, I know they're ugly, but those posts will rust entirely away in about 2 human lifetimes, and it will be as though they were never there. So they're not plastic in the ocean. Iron is one of the greatest constituencies of Earth's mantle, and they'll be ferric oxide, they'll just be more mantle. I'm going to turn this off here. I'm going to get up and then I'm going to show you that from above. I was down in there. Now we're out here. Where I came out, I've got a white oak, and this is a piece of shit plant. This is where we just were from below. Here's what the woody spot looks like from above. There's the T-posts, and the other ones are still around the corner. You can see that once it gets past it, it tends to be running wider. It's been slowed. It's less deep, which makes it more wide. There's one little log down there at the base of those T-posts. They're only a couple of years old. They'll continue to accumulate and stuff. Maybe only 1 year old. I can't remember. That's a big old maple tree right there. That's a big old horseweed right there. This one's a oak tree. I do all this wood hauling with my donkeys. I haul it either on the two-wheel work cart or on the four-wheel work wagon. And the way I make them stand still is I drive them over here, and I just drive them face first into that oak tree, and they love oak leaves, and so they'll stand there all day and eat those while I unload. This is called forcing your donkeys to obey. Okay, so there's another oak tree. There's another oak tree back there. This one is probably a hickory tree. Boy, it's had a rough go. I don't know what this is. Look, yeah, it's the same thing. I don't know for sure. You see the sticks there. I can't see the screen well enough to know what you're looking at, but there's a row of sticks along here. And where those sticks are, there's some kind of a crop plant. Some of them are newly planted. Many of those are oak trees. A lot of the older ones are hickory or hazelnuts. That big bushy looking one right there, that's a hazelnut. I planted it years ago. It'll be bearing before long. But anyway, that whole row, and there's 3 rows. You can see the near one. Then there's another row of sticks, and then up the top of the hill there's another one. And each of those rows is planted along a plowed ditch, one plowshare wide, with the furrow slice turned downhill to make a shallow ditch, and that ditch is parallel to the contour line, perpendicular to gravity. And I surveyed that with a donkey cart and a laser level, and then plowed it with a John Deere, or with a Ford 8-inch tractor and a 1-bottom plow. There's another hickory. Anyway, that whole thing up there is intended to slow water flow as it comes down off this. So what I'm trying to do is to make it slower along the creek. Now a lot of the creek here, this one here, this is a chestnut tree. I planted this from a seed several years ago. Pretty soon I'm going to come down here and prune it to be a little more tree and a little less bush, but I don't know if I'll do that this year because it's a rough year. The creek's back there. Because of the density of the riparian woods, it's difficult to get to a lot of the creek. So most of my video stuff of the creek is just short places. I went farther today. There's another chestnut. This is a common milkweed stand. They're perennials, and it lives here. And I've been mowing around it for several years. And see that I will mow that, not because it's a bad plant, but because if I don't control it, it will take over the whole pasture and it'll be the only thing out here. So I'll come through and mow all that. But these I won't mow at all this year. Anyway, as we walk on down, I'm going down to show you another place where I put sticks in the creek. A little bit more of what I attempt to do to manage it. That's crown vetch. It's a plant I don't like. I'll be attacking that with a mowing machine. That's a chestnut tree right there. You can see the creek in there. Oh, you can see through. This is one of the narrowest places on the riparian woods. You can see clear through the riparian woods, way on over there too. And it's one of the prettiest places on the whole farm is that little meadow back there. It's long and narrow and runs alongside. It's got woods on both sides of it. It's quite pretty. I question, I maintain all this by mowing. If you don't, it just all grows up in thorn trees. And trust me, you can't just not mow it. You have to do something. I always question how close I mow to it, but there's places where it's really nice to be able to walk up and look down into the creek and see what it's doing. A lot of the year it carries water, a lot of years. Another chestnut. There was a time when I was kind of the follower of somebody who believed in planting chestnuts every place. My feelings have broadened out. I want to plant a lot of different things that bear food, because that way, if it turns out that some of them can't survive the coming climate, maybe the others can. But the chestnuts are all from that era and all from seed. Well, I have one chestnut on the whole farm that I planted from a factory plant. I can't think of the word. There's another couple of milkweeds. I have to have a pretty good reason to mow milkweeds. You know, like if they're growing in the middle of pure poison ivy or something, I'll mow them. But mostly I pretty much mow around the milkweeds. I planted up on that hill. I planted all along those three swales. Probably 100, maybe more total chestnuts. And if any of them are alive, it's a miracle. All the ones that are alive are down here. They get shade part every day. They got much cooler air. They couldn't take it out there in the full blazing 2023 Missouri desert sun. There's a honey locust. There's what the thorns look like. You can clear the heck out at the very end of the branches. So see, these are the branches I cut off. They're down close to the ground. They're a nuisance. So I go in there and I cut the branches off. I leave the tree stand, but I cut the branches off and throw them in the creek. And I'm going to show you my other place here. This is the place where you can actually get down to the creek with a animal-drawn vehicle. This one needs a little work. That'd be a red oak there. This would be a hickory. Most of those out there are mulberries, and they're volunteers. We passed it up, but there's a volunteer walnut back there. Okay, this is the place. You can get down to the creek in a donkey-drawn cart here. You can't get down here like Sydney was here with her draft horse and draft-sized wagon, and she can't come down here because it's too crowded. But you can come down here with donkeys in either two-wheel or four-wheel wagon, and they're very space efficient. You can turn around with them. And down here, I should have taken that one over here and thrown it in the creek. I mow this just so it'll stay, so I can walk amongst it and not get tick bit. Okay, this one has a lot less brush on it. But I've been throwing brush in here actually longer than I have been up there. It's just harder to get to. That's the other side that I keep telling you about, the other side of the property. And to get there from here, you have to go down a road where we first started, across the creek right there, and over to the next drive, and then back in, and then drive back down here. So it's far to come to do it from that side, and you can see that I don't very often. And I haven't used as much honey locust thorn up down here as I did up there, and it's made a big difference. Honey locust branches definitely don't wash away like the smoother ones do. And I've got a honey locust just real near here that needs a whole lot of trimming, so that's an important fact to know. You can see there, you know, it used to come over here all the time. You know, this bright green shallow annual vegetation. When the creek used to come around this bend like that, come down there, hit that bank right there, bounce off it, come over here, climb right up here, and come around this. So we've reduced its energy by this much, tangled it up. It's not tearing away as much vegetation over there either. So if I start coming down here and doing all of this doing this spot with honey locust branches, I think I can make a lot of progress. Many years when it rains all year, this pool here will have fish in it. You can go down there and on that green bank right there, that light green one, and hunker down and watch. And after a while you see fish, maybe no bigger than my thumb, but fish, you know. And some years I've even seen fish 2-3 inches long and 1 inch wide down there. You can see here, as we go on, all my efforts to significantly reduce energy have taken place above here. But by the time we get here, it has lost a lot of energy. It's running wider and slower. There's still more low floodplain. We're on low floodplain. It floods up there. You know, in enough of a year, in a hard enough rain, we cannot get out of here. The road that I walked down with you is flooded 2-3 feet deep and flowing way too fast to drive a car into. And this creek here goes down and comes out around over there across the other side road, and it's also flooded. And you can't get out of here by road for typically about 2 to 3 hours after the biggest, hardest rains, because we're so far in the upland that it doesn't take it long to run off. But anyway, my plan is to continue to move my slowing efforts downstream some. This one over here will be the next one. So this is the hill we came down. Now, when I've got like 4 big adults on the 4-wheel cart and it's got skinny wheels and they sink in the mud, the donkeys aren't too thrilled with having to pull people up this hill, but they can do it, and they will do it, and they do it. That tree over there, see if I can find it. That one is the honey locust tree. I'm going to walk over there. There's no building. It needs fixed, and I'm too old. Up in it, up in that tree, there's a bee swarm trap, and I believe there's a swarm living in it. I've already got one hive full, so we can add that to another one. Some more milkweeds. I like milkweeds. That over there's a Johnson grass patch, just ferocious. I mowed that just the other day, and those are the ones that just refuse to be mowed. And here is my current project tree. The thing about these, they're about the most miserable tree on a farm. They're an old pasture invader. They're not a non-native invasive species. They're a old pasture invader, and the reason that they can invade old pastures is because they have thorns like this one on them, and nothing in the world can eat that. Cows can't eat that, goats can't eat that, nothing can eat this. These things, if they fall on the ground, they'll go right through your shoe, they'll go right through your horse's, the sole of your horse's hoof, cripple your horse, and they grow up like this before you notice, especially if you got a day job like I did back then. And so, what I do with them, I operate on the permaculture principle of do the smallest thing you can possibly do to move towards where you want to be, and then see how that worked. So what I do is I come in here under them and I cut off all the branches that grow low near the ground, because I can't mow under them with all these thorns down here. They'll take your hat off, they'll take your face off, they'll take your eyes off, they'll take your mind away from you. So I'll come down here with the team and probably the 8-foot wagon, and I'll saw these off one at a time, and I'll pile them on a wagon, and I'll take them over there where we just were, and I'll put them in the creek. And you just can't imagine these things. When these things get in, you put a pile of these on a wagon, you know, but like say I cut 6 of them off, and I pile them on a wagon, and I cut off just pieces that are 8 feet long so they don't stick out off the wagon any. And I go down there. By the time I get there, and down there is right over there in that deep shady spot. That's where we just came from. That's where the slope down to the creek is. Okay, so by the time I get down there, they'll be so tangled up that I'll have to wrestle each one off individually. And when I put them back in the creek, they'll do the same thing again. And floods have a hard time taking them away. So that's the next plan. That's about all for today, I think. The creek's still down there. Over there we got a woods that's almost nothing but these thorn trees. It grew by accident when nobody was looking. I call it the thorn forest. And I manage it as best I can. Pond's almost dry too. Dry as here. Haven't done anything over here to slow the water down. Except when I mow the grass, I leave it there. Let it ride on the surface. Don't harvest it off for hay or anything else. I just leave it there. The snooty term for that is sheet composting. My term is chop and drop. It's the least I can do. It moves me towards my goal. And then I'll watch and see how it works. More mulberry trees. I'm all around them.